Hi, it's Marlene, and I'm here with Scrapbook Remix, and today I want to take you through quite a busy layout and talk to you a little bit about the different pattern mixes that go on. Once again, this is a page that I made from a kit, so this was the Studio Calico July kits, and I'd used each of the add-ons, and then once I'd made one layout from each add-on, I put all the pieces I had left in together to mix and match. So even though it was with the kit, there's quite a lot of freedom in mixing and matching at this point because I had so many different elements to hand. So you can see my starting point here, I had two 4x6 photos, and they were going to go on one green cardstock photo mat, and then there's two pattern papers there in the background to get started. One with a circular design, a sort of bubble or dot pattern. That's the yellow, and it has the largest dots. And then that red pattern is actually a sort of chain of circles in the design, because they're in strips rather than arranged randomly or like polka dots. But there's still a round element in that design. And there's a few reasons why I put those two papers together to start everything. So it's always worth thinking about whether your patterns have something in common or something to contrast. And at this stage that you can see now, I have both elements on the page. So I started with two papers that had something in common, that idea of something that has a circle in the motif, in both the yellow and the red paper. And then I wanted to introduce some contrast, so I brought in a stripe. So kind of dots and stripes are kind of opposites in the design world, lines and circles, but they work well together because you then get that contrast. And multiple stripes together, much harder to find a good mix of pattern paper than multiple dots. Dots tend to be easier to mix and match. So I tend to go with multiple dots and then one stripe, or might do a few dots and a floral and one stripe. Mix things around, but those tend to be my three really basic groups of pattern papers: dots, lines, and florals. Now, then there are some oddball pattern papers. That little block that I'm putting down now that says boy, those letters aren't from a sticker sheet or a letter set. They were printed on the 12x12 pattern paper. It was a design with the alphabet from A to Z. And I cut them out, except on the pattern, they sort of overlapped. So you couldn't just cut them out and use them as letters, because sometimes the whole letter wouldn't be there. So in this case, I was able to kind of overlap them so that you could read it. But if I were to, for example, take that B away, there's a big gaping hole in the O behind there. So I wanted to use that paper, and I liked the idea of using that as a design element. But if you look at it now as it is, I don't think it's very legible. I think it kind of makes you cross your eyes a bit to look at it and figure out what does that actually say. And because the B and the O both have the center pieces, and I didn't want to cut them out because I'm maybe just because I'm lazy, but I wanted to leave the centers intact. But then because two of them have that and the Y doesn't, the Y sort of looks like it's from another alphabet. So what I decided was that I would use that as a background layer. So when you have something that you start to think, you start off liking it, and then you start to think maybe it's not going to work, one way to include it is to just move it from the front to the back, or from the foreground to the background. So instead of including this as as part of the title itself, it's going to become a paper background that will repeat one of the words in the title, and the title will layer right over the top with letter stickers, which are a lot easier to read than those patterned letters. So there you go. You can see now the word boy repeats with the yellow stickers on top. So those large letters become a design element. They all still have something in common with everything else that's on the page. So the Y is green, and there was already a bit of green cardstock on the page. The B was red. And then the blue is the contrasting piece, the O in the middle. It's a different color, it's a different sort of pattern. So just like I picked the two dots and a stripe, in the letters, I have 2 that have something in common and 1 that's different. I hope that makes a little sense. Then I start looking at the gaps, and you might have noticed that that red number block actually covered up part of the design of the journaling card underneath. And the truth was, the journaling card had a little doodled design on it that just really wasn't my style. I don't tend to have that kind of embellishment on my page, but I liked the color and I liked the shape of the journaling box, so it just covered up the bit of the pattern that I didn't like or that wasn't true to my style, and that gave me a place where I could start to anchor plenty of other embellishment. So that star has something in common with something already on the page. It uses a very similar stripe, and this star was already die cut, so it's just a different element from the same paper collection. But sometimes with basic patterns like dots and stripes, you'll find repeats and things that they have in common without even being in the same collection. And then the washi tape takes that idea of the green and cream stripe that's in both the star and the border and turns it into a chevron. So I'm going to dot that across the page to give my embellishment some grounding, and it's also one that gives me a place to write the date. And a chevron, especially a quite even geometric one like this, is just a line set in 2 different directions. So the stripe goes in one way and then it stops and repeats in the mirrored direction. So even though they're very different, they have something in common. And then once I'd added the washi tape, I now have these little gaps, and the washi tape helps me outline the bottom of each of those embellishment groups. So I just started filling in the space with other elements. I decided to add another star and things like that. It's all a case of repeating a few different elements or finding something that the page already has. So there's something in common between the embellishment and what's already there. So the lettering from the top of the page repeats in the embellishment at the bottom of the page with a monogram, for example. The same things apply to both colors and patterns, so I hope you find that little rule of thumb easy to remember.